Right. So today we're going deep into the world of intersex and transgender musical artists.
Okay.
We've got this really interesting article from TATANKA.
Yeah.
They're all about inclusivity in music. And then we've got this story about a non-binary musician named Kai. It's really going to make us think
Ooh, cool.
of how these artists are expressing themselves and what we can do to build a better music scene for them.
That's really interesting because it's not just about the music, is it? It's about like identity and like finding your voice.
Right, exactly.
And the power of music to like challenge what society thinks is normal, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So let's break down this article from TATANKA first.
Okay.
Like, what is it they're actually trying to do? What's their mission?
Well, it seems like they're really focused on intersex and transgender artists specifically.
Uh-huh.
And they're talking about creating these spaces where those artists can, be themselves and connect with audiences who really appreciate their unique view. They're not just talking about acceptance. It's more about celebrating the diversity that these artists bring.
I see. So it's even more than just tolerance.
Right, exactly.
It's like actively making space for them to flourish.
Yes.
Okay. So how are they actually going about doing that?
Well, they've got this three-pronged approach, and it seems really practical looking at the source material here.
Oh.
They're talking about inclusive venues, then building up support networks, and then education.
Okay, cool. So let's go through those.
Yeah.
What do they mean when they say inclusive venues?
So they're talking about like the environment,
Uh-huh.
making sure that everybody feels safe and welcome, like on stage, backstage, everywhere.
Yeah.
Thinking about things like gender-neutral restrooms, making sure the staff know how to use inclusive language.
Oh, right.
And then making sure that there's zero tolerance for any discrimination.
Yeah.
From the second an artist steps into that venue,
Yeah.
they should feel respected and valued.
That makes total sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's about building that respect in
Right.
from the ground up.
Totally.
Okay, what about these support networks? What do those look like?
So it's all about building that sense of community
Ah.
and giving resources specifically for transgender and intersex musicians.
Yeah.
There are a few organizations mentioned, like GLAD.
Ah.
They're all about representing LGBTQ plus people in the media, right?
Yeah.
And then the Transgender Law Center,
Right.
who provide legal help and resources.
Okay.
It seems like these networks provide mentorship.
Yeah.
They help connect artists with industry professionals, and they help them navigate the challenges that they face.
Which are probably pretty unique.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, cool. So it's like they're trying to create this system where these artists can actually succeed.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so what about this education part? Who are they targeting with that?
Well, it's for everybody, really. They want to teach industry professionals about the challenges that intersex and transgender artists are facing.
Okay.
Then work with venues to make those inclusive practices happen. And also just educate fans so that everybody is more understanding and accepting.
Right.
They believe that education is like the key to breaking down all these stereotypes and creating a much more inclusive culture.
Yeah.
And they specifically mentioned the Human Rights Campaign, which is advocating for LGBTQ plus equality.
Okay.
And then the Intersex Justice Project. They're focused on raising awareness about all those intersex issues.
It sounds like they're trying to change the whole system, really,
Completely.
from the bottom up.
Yes.
Which is where Kai's story comes in, right? This non-binary musician who had some trouble fitting in.
Yeah, it's a really good example of why this work is so important, because Kai was super talented and passionate, but there were always these roadblocks.
Oh, wow.
And their identity was seen as a negative thing, not a positive one.
Oh, that's awful.
And it almost made them give up on music completely.
Jeez.
Yeah. And I think a lot of artists in marginalized communities face this same struggle to be accepted,
Yeah, so it's not just a one-off. It's like a systemic problem.
Yeah, absolutely.
What was it about the industry that made it so hard for Kai? Like, what were they specifically coming up against?
So some venues just weren't welcoming or
Right.
safe, and some people in the industry didn't really take them seriously as a musician.
Oh, wow.
There's this pressure to conform,
Yeah.
and if you don't fit in, it's really tough to get started.
Yeah.
I think the whole industry needs a change in mindset.
Yeah. That's heartbreaking. It sounds like their identity was seen as this barrier
Yeah,
instead of something to be celebrated.
absolutely.
But then their story changes, right? There's this venue called the Open Voice.
Yes, and it's like the complete opposite of what Kai experienced before.
Oh, cool.
The Open Voice was made to be like a safe space for all these different artists, a place where being different is celebrated, not just tolerated.
I bet that was awesome for Kai.
Oh, yeah.
Tell me more about this space.
Okay.
What made the open voice so different?
Well, the management was really serious about inclusion.
Okay.
It wasn't just talk. They were really working to make everyone feel welcome and respected.
Yeah.
It wasn't just about booking diverse artists either.
Right.
It was about building that inclusivity into everything they did.
So it was more than just like surface level. It was like built into their DNA.
Yeah, exactly.
So how did that actually affect Kai? What was it like for them to perform there?
It changed everything for them.
Wow.
They felt like they belonged, which they hadn't felt anywhere else.
Yeah.
They could finally just relax and be themselves on stage. It wasn't just performing, it was freeing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Did the audience pick up on that? How did they react to Kai's performance?
Oh, they loved it. They were cheering, singing along, totally engaged.
Wow.
And that gave Kai so much more confidence to really shine.
Yeah.
It was more than just a show. It was like watching an artist discover themselves.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Sounds like this feedback loop of support and encouragement.
Yeah, totally.
And it wasn't just a one-time thing, right? Kai kept performing at the Open Voice.
Yeah, they did. And every time, it just made them more sure that they had a place in the music world.
Yeah.
It wasn't just about finding an audience. It was about finding a whole community that really got them.
That's so cool. It shows you how important these safe spaces are for artists.
Definitely.
But how does this all tie back to what we were talking about with TATANKA?
So this is like a perfect example of what they're fighting for, you know? Inclusive venues, that identity-affirming support.
Yeah.
The open voice is like their mission in action. It shows you how powerful these spaces can be.
Yeah.
And more importantly, it shows that it's actually possible.
Right.
It's not just a dream. There are places out there actually doing this right now.
That's what makes this deep dive so interesting.
Yeah.
It's not just theory. It's about real people, what they're going through and how to fix it.
Exactly.
But what about the venues that aren't like the Open Voice?
Right.
What are they doing wrong?
Right. Well, that's something we should talk about next time.
Okay, let's do that. So we saw how great that inclusive space was, the Open Voice.
Yeah.
But let's like flip that around.
Right.
What's going on with the venues that just don't get it? Why are they resisting this whole inclusivity thing?
It's a good question. It's complicated, to be honest.
Yeah.
There's not one answer, but I think it's usually like a bunch of things mixed together, like biases that people already have, being scared of change, and sometimes people just don't even know, you know?
Okay, let's break that down.
Yeah.
What do you mean by those biases that people already have?
Well, the music industry, like a lot of industries, has always been run by certain types of people, right?
Right.
And because of that, they have these ideas about what's good music, who the audience is supposed to be, what success looks like, all that.
Right.
And those ideas can be really hard to change.
So it's like these unwritten rules that help some artists and hurt others.
Exactly. And when you have those biases so deep, it's hard to see past them, even when you can see that they're causing harm.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so then what about being scared of change? How does that fit in?
Change can be scary.
Yeah.
Especially in a world like music, which is so competitive and changes so fast.
Right.
Some venues might worry that if they become inclusive, they'll lose their current audience.
Right.
Or they won't make as much money.
Yeah.
It's this play it safe attitude where they'd rather things stay the same, even if it's not working.
So they're holding on to what's familiar, even when it's not good for everyone.
Right.
It sounds like they're not being very creative either.
Yeah.
Like, you can't even imagine how much potential there is in something new.
I think that's a good point.
Yeah.
A lot of people underestimate how much audiences want diversity.
Yeah.
And they think what worked before will keep working forever.
Right.
But audiences are changing. They want more realness in the music, you know? Yeah.
More representation.
Okay. So we've got the biases. We've got the fear of change.
Right.
But what about just not knowing?
Yeah.
Like maybe some venues are just clueless.
I think that happens too.
Yeah.
Not everyone in the industry is like a bad person, you know?
Yeah.
Some people just genuinely don't get the struggles that intersex and transgender artists go through.
Yeah.
They haven't taken the time to learn about why inclusivity matters.
So it's about raising awareness and giving them the tools to learn.
Yeah, exactly.
But even if we educate everyone, there's still this bigger problem, right?
Right.
The industry itself is built in a way that keeps some people out.
Absolutely. We can't just focus on what individuals think.
Right.
We have to fix the system that's keeping things unequal.
Yeah.
Think about how music is marketed and promoted. It's still all about traditional gender roles, right?
Yeah.
That makes it super hard for artists who don't fit in those boxes.
Yeah, it's like this rule book saying you have to look and sound a certain way to be successful.
And if you're different, you're going to have a tough time.
Yeah.
That's got to be stifling.
Totally. It limits creativity and reinforces these old-fashioned ideas about what music should be.
So how do we break free from that? How do we change the system and make things fair?
Well, it's going to take a lot of different things happening at once.
Okay.
We need more representation at all levels.
Right.
Like record labels, radio stations, festivals.
Yeah.
We need to support groups like TATANKA, who are fighting for change and holding the industry accountable.
So we need to shift who has the power, right?
Yes.
Give these artists a real voice.
Exactly. And it's not just about being there. It's about changing the whole story.
Okay. I like that. Challenging the narrative.
Yeah.
How do we do that? Like, what does that look like?
Well, we can start by actually listening to intersex and transgender artists.
Right.
Share their music, help them reach more people.
Right.
Be intentional about what you listen to. Go beyond the mainstream.
Yeah.
And when you're listening, really pay attention.
To the lyrics, the feelings, the experiences. Connect with the art on a deeper level. You know, understand the human stories behind it.
That's such a good point.
Yeah.
It's about making a choice to listen to different voices.
Right.
And being thoughtful about the music we consume.
It's about treating music as more than just something in the background.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
about really connecting with it.
And it's not just about what we listen to individually, right?
Right.
It's about changing the whole culture.
Yes, absolutely.
We need to celebrate all the different ways people express themselves
Yeah.
and realize there's not just one right way to make music, right?
We need to get rid of these limiting categories
Huh.
and just embrace how rich and complex human experience is.
Yeah, it's about expanding our definition of what music can be
Yes.
and who can make it.
The most innovative art, the stuff that really breaks boundaries,
Yeah.
it usually comes from people who are challenging the norm.
And that's where intersex and transgender artists come in, right?
Exactly.
They're not just making music. They're
Yeah.
changing the whole game, pushing genres, experimenting with sound,
Yeah.
creating new ways to express music.
They challenge what we expect and make us see what's possible.
So it's not just about inclusivity to be politically correct.
Right.
It's about recognizing how creative these communities are.
Totally.
It's a gold mine of new ideas and inspiration.
By being inclusive, we're not just doing the right thing.
Yeah.
We're making the whole music world better.
Right.
More vibrant, more dynamic, more interesting.
And that's something everyone can agree on.
Yeah.
But let's be real, this isn't going to happen overnight.
Right.
There's so much work to do.
Yeah.
And there will be pushback, right?
So how do we stay motivated?
Yeah.
How do we keep pushing even when it feels impossible? We have to remember that change takes time.
Yeah.
It's a journey, not a quick fix.
Right.
There will be setbacks,
Yeah.
frustrations. It's not always going to be easy.
So we got to stay focused, even when it's hard.
But where do we find that strength? How do we not get discouraged when the industry seems so stuck in its ways?
I think we got to remember the stories.
Okay.
Stories like Kai's, stories about not giving up, about overcoming challenges,
Yeah.
about people who refuse to be silenced.
So we find inspiration in the artists themselves.
Exactly.
Yeah.
When we see people like Kai breaking down barriers and succeeding on their own terms, it gives us hope, reminds us that change is possible,
Right.
that our efforts matter.
It's about seeing how what we do affects real people
Yeah.
and knowing that we're part of something bigger.
I think that's a good place to pause for now.
Okay.
We've talked about a lot.
Yeah, we have.
It's good to let it sink in before we move on.
Wow, this deep dive has been quite a journey.
Yeah.
We started with TATANKA's mission to make the music industry more inclusive.
Right.
Then we heard Kai's story. And now we're talking about how to change the whole system.
It's a lot, for sure.
It really is.
We talked about inclusive venues, support networks, education,
Yeah.
but then also all those biases.
Right.
The fear of change, those barriers that keep things unequal.
Yeah. It's a lot to take in.
It is.
And it's bigger than just the music industry, right?
Definitely.
We're talking about how society works, about power,
Yeah.
about everyone's right to express themselves and be valued.
Absolutely.
It's about creating a world where everyone feels safe to be themselves, no matter their gender identity.
Exactly.
So as we wrap up,
Okay.
I'm wondering, where do we go from here? What can we each do to help make this change happen?
I think the first thing is to realize we all have a part to play.
Okay.
We can't wait for someone else to fix it.
Right.
We have to actively create the world we want.
So it's about taking responsibility for our own actions.
And choices, yeah.
Okay, so what does that actually look like?
Well, we have to be aware of our own biases.
Right.
Challenge our assumptions.
Uh-huh.
Be willing to have those tough conversations.
Okay.
Listen to those who are marginalized. Amplify their voices.
Yeah.
Use whatever platform we have to speak up for change.
So it's about using our voices, our influence, even our money, to support the right people.
That's exactly.
Businesses and organizations that match our values.
Support the artists who are pushing boundaries. Challenging what's normal.
Seek out those different perspectives.
Yeah.
Expand our idea of what music can be.
Be curious. Be open-minded.
Yeah.
Get out of your comfort zone.
And most importantly, be empathetic.
Yes, absolutely.
Try to understand people who are different from us.
Yeah.
See their struggles as our struggles.
Realize we're all connected. That the fight for equality is everyone's fight.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
It's about coming together.
Right.
Instead of just focusing on ourselves.
Just seeing our shared humanity.
When we fight for others, we're fighting for ourselves, too.
Exactly.
I think that's a great way to wrap things up.
Yeah, this deep dive has been a lot.
It has.
Challenging, but I think ultimately hopeful.
I agree.
It reminds us that change is possible,
Yeah.
but we have to be involved, informed, committed.
To making the world more just and equal.
For everyone.
So to everyone listening,
Yeah.
keep exploring, keep listening, keep talking about these things.
It's important.
The future of music depends on it.